I'm going to be showing you how to make an Alzheimer's sensory stimulation quilt, otherwise known as a fidget quilt. A sensory stimulation quilt comforts patients in the later stages of dementia, and research shows that these quilts calm patients or reduce unwanted behaviors. They are lap-sized, made out of fabrics with different colors and textures, and they have items attached that the patients can fiddle with. Making a sensory stimulation quilt is an excellent way to help people who have Alzheimer's disease. So to make your sensory stimulation quilt, you're going to need materials. So to start, you're going to need 36 6-inch by 6-inch squares. So they'll be like this. And this is 36 by 6 by 6-inch squares. And they're going to want to be different in color and texture. So you're going to want shiny, textured, smooth, soft, anything that, and you wouldn't want to put them by each other. The ones that look different so that they can contrast. So next you're going to need a fleece backing for the back of your quilt, and it needs to be 36 by 36. So next you're going to need your basic sewing supplies. So that's going to include all-purpose or polyester thread for sewing, and a thread cutter, scissors, and pins to pin fabric that is slippery or loose. A ruler, mat, and rotary cutter are also helpful, but not required. At the end, when you're done making your quilt, you can add things to it, embellishments. So if you're going to want to do this, you're going to need things to use. This can include zippers, buttons, tassels, lace, ribbons, anything that the people could play with or touch and feel when they have the quilt. Okay, so to review, the materials you're going to need are 36 6-inch squares, different colors and textures, a 36 by 36-inch fleece backing, basic sewing supplies, scissors, thread ripper, pins, and if you want a mat, rotary cutter, and ruler, and also any embellishments you're going to want to put on your quilt at the end, such as zippers, lace, ribbons, buttons. So the first step is you're going to arrange your 36 squares in a nice pattern. For this one I chose to use green and blues, but you can use any type of colors. And it should be 6 squares across, 6 squares down. So you're going to sew your squares together with a 1/4 inch seam across the top. If you're using slippery or napped fabric, you're going to want to pin your fabric to keep it from shifting so you can make your 1/4 inch seam. You're going to sew the rows together by matching the seams at the top and pinning. Once you have your squares sewed into rows, you're going to pin them together and pin the top together to complete. Once your quilt is pieced together, lightly press it with an iron and then square it. So you want your quilt to be squared, so this is where your rotary cutter is going to come in handy. Your quilt should be about 33 by 33 by the time it's sewn together, and so if it's not, you can just use the rotary cutter to trim the edges. So the next step is to take your completed quilt and put it over your 36 by 36 fleece backing. Since these quilts are for comfort, not warmth, you don't need any batting to put in between the back and the front of the quilt. Quilt all pinned, the next step is to sew every single seam with an S stitch or a zigzag stitch. So now that you have sewn the backing to the top of the quilt using the S or zigzag stitch, it's time to make the binding on the edges. So trim the backing to 5/8 of an inch, wider than the top, And you can use a scissors or rotary cutter to trim the backing. So you're going to want to trim the back 5/8 of an inch wider than the top. You're going to fold the backing over the top and then pin it down. Once you've sewn your binding, your quilt is complete, but if you want, you can add embellishments like I talked about earlier. Here I added a ribbon, a tassel, some lace, a button, a zipper, and even a pocket. It just makes your quilt more interesting and better for the people to feel. Step 1. Cut 36 6-inch squares of various textures and colors. Machine washable fabric only. Step 2. Cut a 36 by 36 inch fleece backing. Step 3. Sew the 36 squares into a 6 by 6 square grid using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Step 4. Center the quilt top onto the backing and use a zigzag or S-stitch along all seams. Step 5. Trim the backing to 5/8 of an inch wider than each side of the top. Step 6. Fold the backing over the front of the quilt and sew down. Step 7. Add any embellishments. That's all there is to it. Just follow these simple steps and you'll be able to make your own Alzheimer's sensory stimulation quilt easily for anyone in need. Thanks for watching the video.